Hey, what's up, fantasy fans? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk. And we got week one already in the books, and I'm sure everybody's thinking the same thing. It was a crazy helter-skelter week one. It was disappointing on many ends and on many sides in many positions. And a lot of the players we drafted number one, two, or three were extremely disappointing. And before I get started with the actual waiver picks for this video, I'm going to point out three things that I want to mention. That two of the things are going to be things I noticed this week thus far, or this week so far in the fantasy season. And the third thing is going to be just a little thing to let y'all know of what not to do after seeing a week one like that. The first point I want to make is I don't know what it is about wide receivers, but they must have broken every mirror and walked under every ladder in their respective cities. Because from preseason to this week thus far, number one wide receivers on teams are killing fantasy owners. Jordy Nelson out, and a lot of people drafted him in their drafts before he went down, so they lost a pick, and I'm one of them. Mike Evans out. Dez Bryant out. Deshaun Jackson out. T.Y. Hilton probably out. Alshon Jeffrey was a decoy. Demarius has a hand issue, and we don't know how that's going to be. Of the top 10 point outings of wide receivers this week, the 10 best point players of the week, only two were in my top 10 rankings, and that was Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. Not one player of my top 10 did it on Sunday. So, and that's the position that usually has the most upside in fantasy. So wide receivers are off to a horrid start. But obviously, don't panic. It's just one of those weeks. And the second point I wanted to make of observation is, this is very sad. Peyton Manning looks done. I don't even know what to say. It just looked like he had no zip on any passes, no arm strength, and that offensive line is despicable. And I think to me, it's hard to see him playing another year if this continues. But this is the thing in terms of fantasy, besides the fact I have him on 5 of my 10 teams, this is the fantasy impact of this. Not only does it affect him as a fantasy player in terms of what he can give us, it's going to affect all the Broncos' skill offensive players. It's going to affect CJ. It's going to affect Demarius. And in the least case, it's going to affect Emmanuel Sanders because he's going to be more of Peyton's safety valve working kind of just short pattern routes. That's why he had so many targets and did the best. But he's not going to be able to take the top off with Demarius and CJ. They're going to load the box and kill that dude. So this is just a problem all the way around. So you're going to have to temper your expectations of a lot of these Broncos, in particular Peyton Manning. And it's a sad day today to announce that from my perspective. But Peyton looks like he's as close to done as I've ever seen him. And I hope it changes, but it doesn't look good. And the third fact I want to bring up is, with all the things that went wrong or didn't go well for you in the first week of fantasy, don't make hasty moves. Don't panic. I've already got questions about people who should we possibly trade this person or should we possibly drop this person? The answer is no. Any other player that you drafted round 8 or better, between round 1 to 8, should not be dropped before 3 to 4 weeks if they're not performing. You want to see what happens. So for all the people who have Dez, Deshaun, Mike Evans, and T.Y., just sit tight. See what these injuries are, see what it's going to be. With the Dez owners out there, you know you got like 5 weeks or so to wait. But his value above replacement level is too high. You can't just drop him. There's nobody out there that you're going to be able to pick up to spell the value he'll be when he comes back. So you're just going to have to hold tight. So, but without further ado, we're going to go to my waiver ads. And in case you guys that are new don't know how I do this, these are players that are less than 70% owned, and these are the guys that you want to add to your lineups. And it's generally, I do it by importance of player I think would be the first one you want to grab off the waivers all the way to the last. But with this list here, my first two are kind of interchangeable. It could be 1A or 1B, however you want to view it. But my first waiver ad of the week would be James Jones. Anybody who has familiarity with him knows that this is an example of familiarity. It's a player that's back on his old team, and he is known as a vulture of the wide receivers that you draft from Green Bay. And he's the guy that gets a lot of touchdowns, but very few targets. And this was the exact same thing this week. 4 targets, 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. But the thing is, with Jordy being out and Randall Cobb being iffy, he has a chance to be more productive and more important to the offense. But the thing is, you don't want to depend on him, because since touchdowns are fluky and not dependable, he shouldn't be in your starting lineups unless absolutely necessary. But to me, the biggest downside of this whole thing is for all the people, like myself included, who put a lot of stock into Davante Adams. His stock goes down. And I don't mean it goes completely down to where he's droppable, but all the possibilities that I had in my mind of what he could be this year, I tell you, a good 25% of that is taken off, because he's going to now have to fight to be the second option, which he seemed like he was going to be before Jones got signed. But that doesn't mean drop him. Just stay tuned and see what happens. Second waiver ad of the week, just like Jones, is another wide receiver, Terrence Williams. I'm not the biggest Terrence Williams fan at all. And this is, to me, more about Romo and that offensive line that gives him all the time in the world than anything. Somebody's got to benefit from Dez going down, and he's the most likely to do so. We've had high hopes in him the last few years, and he's been disappointing. He had that glimpse of greatness in his rookie year, but he fizzled out. This is his chance to show what he has, and he's going to have to, really, because, again, Dez is usually the type of player that plays through injury. He can't play through a broken foot. So I expect Terrence Williams to get things going, and that's definitely a guy you want to invest in more than anything else. It can't go wrong. That offensive line is too good, and it looks like Romo is in his zone, so you'll definitely want to pick him up. Number 3 is Carson Palmer. This is no accident, folks. You saw it last year before he got hurt. He was on a roll to being a top 8 quarterback, and he showed it with sheer explosion in this first week. This is an excellent quarterback in a pass-happy offense, and as long as he's healthy, you saw him when he was on the Bengals. This is a true, indeed, quarterback. And my Brandon Cooks of this year, who I've been telling people about, Brandon Cooks of this year, and the guy I've been pushing heavily was John Brown, and it looks like it's already going to get started. Palmer is going to put up some big numbers this year. And if you're in a position where you have a quarterback that's going to struggle, like I just said with Peyton Manning or any of that other stuff, you definitely want somebody like that to back you up. This is a situation where he could be your starting quarterback when somebody's fair to middle and are not as good, because this offense is just explosive like that, and they're going to keep going. So if you are having quarterback deficiencies, you definitely want to pick up Carson Palmer. Number 4 is the only reason he isn't over Carson is because he's a rookie, and that's Marcus Mariota. You saw what happened. The only reason he's behind him, as I said, is because he's going to have to go through his growing pains. But this is not a fluke. He had a great camp, decent preseason, and he's on a team that's now showing you that it was all about quarterback, what they needed to adjust. Mettenberger wasn't the answer. He comes in and he showed it in week 1. And this isn't a thing you're going to see every week. He's not going to have 4 touchdowns every week and look that perfect. He's going to have his problems. But he's got obvious camaraderie with his team. He's got the attention of the locker room, and he's making Kendall Wright look like the player that he was supposed to be. And with Delaney Walker, that's going to boost him. And you saw what happened with Bishop Sankey. These guys now look like they're going to be consistent across the board. It's because they've got what they finally needed. So again, you got quarterback issues. He's out there in most leagues. grab him because this is the last week of it. It's not going to be happening anymore. He's probably going to be wavered and picked up far more than Palmer because of the name. So this is your last chance to get Mariota, but it's going to be worth it if you have quarterback problems. Number 5, Danny Woodhead. I should have known better. I mean, a lot of us were letting them slide deep in drafts or just avoiding them altogether, but you never count out a healthy Danny Woodhead. Melvin Gordon has a long way to go before he's a dependable every down back. I think we all know that. And while he's growing, Woodhead is going to be feasting on this. He's a reputed PPR monster. And if all of you in PPR leagues, if he's on your bench, you need to have him today because he has basically RB2 value in PPR, but definite flex value in any other league. But this is the crazy thing. They used him on the ground in addition to his 7 targets, and that's just gravy. And I don't see his his reception targets changing anytime soon. So I definitely am high on getting Woodhead, and he's out there in a number of leagues, so you can get him. And that's definitely somebody I would be targeting. Number 6, Donte Moncrief. T.Y. Hilton has a bruised knee and is probably going to miss a week or a couple weeks. Maybe. I'm not saying that verbatim, but it seems like it was. It looked pretty bad when it happened. Anybody who saw Andre Johnson, he looked terrible. He looked slow and old. And the arguable best quarterback in the league, Andrew Luck, is going to have to throw to somebody, and somebody's going to have to take the wheel. And the way I see it, Donte Moncrief is the next up. I've never been all that enamored with his talent, just like, say, Terrence Williams, never all that fascinated with what he does. But I like his chances with Andrew Luck. And this is going to also be a big boost to all Dwayne Allen owners. If he's out there in your league, grab him too. I have him in a lot of my leagues, so I'm liking what this is going to be. So while T.Y. is out, Donte Moncrief becomes somewhat of an enticing piece to pick up. Number 7, Stevie Johnson. We've seen this before. This isn't a huge surprise. He's been getting rave reviews as a good, you saw him when he was in Buffalo. But the thing is, he can be a head case sometimes, you know that. But he got rave reviews in camp and the preseason. And if Rivers is going to throw the ball 42 times like he did this past weekend, Keenan Allen can't get it all. And Darius Green can't get it all. And the thing is, though he didn't get too many targets, he's just one of those players that's talented enough to get things going. And if he can keep his head on straight, he can be a steal. And he had started to get a lot of momentum towards these later drafts before the season started. And it looks like it might keep forward if, like I say, if Phillip Rivers continues to do what he does. So Stevie Johnson's a good pickup this week. Number 8 is 3 players. And it's of the tight end, it's the tight end position. It's the position that happened to supplant wide receivers in productivity this week. Austin Sefarian-Jenkins, Jordan Reed, and Tyler Eifert. Like I say, this past weekend was a tight end sweepstakes. Everything the wide receivers didn't do, the tight ends did. And it isn't just those 3 I named. You got Darius Green, Heath Miller, Eric Ebron, all had solid games, and they're largely unowned commodities. And my ranking of them is, as I stated, Jenkins first, Reed second, and Eifert third. The reason why that is because Sefarian-Jenkins, and Reed are both complete safety valves with ineffective quarterbacks throwing at him right now. Jameis Winston has got to get adjusted, and until then, he's going to be throwing to his tight end. The Washington quarterback situation is a mess. Going to be throwing to the tight end. Tyler Eifert, on the other hand, has Andy Dalton, who is a mess within himself. But because Jermaine Gresham's gone, he gets to come into the role that we always was expecting him to have the past couple of years. For the first time in a long time, tight ends more than Gronk and Graham look like they might be fantasy dependable. So that's just a maybe, though. But in the meantime, if you got problems with tight end, those 3, and like I said, Darius Green, Miller, Ebron, and all of that are options that you might want to take on. Number 9, Ronnie Hillman. I mentioned earlier how bad the Denver offensive line looked. And I mentioned earlier how this Peyton Manning situation is going to be a problem. Look, for all owners who have C.J. Anderson, you need to walk, not run to the waiver wire or to whoever owns Ronnie Hillman on the bench and make a trade for him. Because if you guys don't remember, Ronnie Hillman was the CJ before CJ was. Last year, Ronnie Hillman got the start and he got hurt. And that's when CJ took over. And in his starts, he was killing it. And you saw the other day, Ronnie Hillman looked much better than CJ out there. And CJ's already hurt. Anybody who owns CJ Anderson, you need to do whatever you got to do to get Ronnie Hillman somehow, some way. Because in my opinion, with the way they're going to load this box this year, with the way Peyton's looking, Ronnie Hillman has a above zero chance, highly above zero chance to be in that starting lineup very, very soon. So that's a guy you want to grab. And number 10, Darren Sproles. Just like Danny Woodhead, did I just mention recently, or a few minutes ago, when draft time rolls around, you kind of forget about these guys because they're small guys and you think that, okay, maybe this is the year they get forgotten about, and they've both had their share of injuries. But when it comes to usage, both their offenses know how to use them. And you saw Sproles the other night. He had 7 catches on 9 targets. But what's the crazy thing is he had 5 carries, just like I said Woodhead had carries. And with the Chip Kelly offense, that's as fast-paced as it was, he's going to have all the change of pace work that he can handle, even with Murray in the fold, even with Ryan Matthews in the fold. So just like I said with Woodhead, Darren Sproles needs to be owned in all leagues and provides very comparable and solid flex value. And just before I go, I'm going to give you all a few honorable mentions. Number 11, Chris Johnson and David Johnson. The quarterback, not quarterback, but the running back situation where Andre Ellington is in flux. And to me, it's going to be Chris Johnson, his first man up. But in the long haul, I think I want to have David Johnson because I have him on both my team, on several of my teams rather. And Chris Johnson, we've seen what he's been for the last few years. He's basically a shell of who he was. So the long-term value between the two is definitely with David Johnson. Dion Lewis, he looked great the other night, but LeGarrette Blount's coming back. But with LeGarrette Blount, it's always an issue that can happen. So Dion Lewis is somebody you might want to hold, but if you know the Patriots, you know that their running back situation is something you want to avoid, but you can do worse. So he might be a pickup. DeAngelo Williams. The only reason I'm saying this is the other night it showed that as good as Le'Veon Bell is, it looks like that offensive line is what gives him a lot of his room to run. And you saw it with DeAngelo Williams just cutting up the field. Le'Veon was not missed. And if you need something quick and easy this week, it'd be a good ad to throw him in until Le'Veon comes back, and a good hold for all Le'Veon owners simply because he's coming off of injury at the end of the season. We don't know if he's 100% healthy. He was saying during even some times of the preseason, he ain't 100% healthy. So all Le'Veon Bell owners need to own DeAngelo Williams. That's another person that you might want to try to trade with to get DeAngelo Williams because he looked great. And then number 14, last honorable mention, Benny Cunnigham. This Rams running back situation is just very weird. It's going to be a while before Todd Gurley gets his work. And Trey Mason is looking like he's going to be out for a while until he gets going. So in the meantime, Benny Cunnigham looks pretty decent, like a starting running back that you can have. So he's an honorable mention. But I think that ends the video. It went a little long, it's 19 minutes, but had to get a little bit of information in there for you guys. Again, don't panic. Don't overestimate anything or underestimate anything that happened in week 1. It's usually by about week 3 and week 4 when you start noticing when and if you need to cut bait of people. But don't make hasty trades because people are going to test you this week. People are going to come at you with you lowballing. They're going to become offering you nobodies or guys that had a good week 1 for your stud. Don't be stupid. Don't make moves that you will regret later. Just hold tight, watch the patterns of everything, and more importantly, watch for week 2 and week 3. So we'll see you next time, and thanks for watching, and good luck to the rest of your season. I know I'm going to need it. Oh, and for the people who probably wondering with me, with my 10 leagues, I went 6-4, and I happened to lose in one of the important leagues to me, which is a league where I'm playing some of my fans here, some of my viewers that watch me, and I ended up losing in that week. The team I went against scored 158 points, and they happened to have a lot of the guys that blew up. So, wish me luck coming out of that. But it's a lot of fun. I love it anyway. So, but anyway, we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Take care.